What's up, Gumbo listeners? Demetrius Malbro here, dropping another Data Protection Gumbo episode for you today. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Waxman, Head of Product at Cohesity. And Matt has been in tech for over 20 years, starting as a software developer and then moving into product, and enjoys anything that has to do with building products and growing businesses. Matt grew up in Montreal, lives in the Bay Area, and when the air is clear, he likes to mountain bike and play golf. Man, that's a life. So Gumbo listeners, Matt discusses how to solve the mass data fragmentation problem, data management as a service, automating workloads, and also leveraging RESTful APIs to achieve your backup objectives. So sit back and relax, and we'll take a few seconds to thank our sponsors. Haiku is a global leader in multi-cloud data protection, helping companies take advantage of their cloud platform of choice from on-premises to public clouds. Your purpose-built backup as a service, management, and DR solutions are just one click away. Visit tryhaiku.com, that's tryhycu.com to get started today. Matt, welcome to Data Protection Gumbo. How are you today?
Hey, Demetrius, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
What's your philosophy around managing and organizing and protecting all of the data that's kind of spread across, on-premises and also the cloud?
Yeah, I think Mohit started with a very grand vision, as you should, right? When you're going to tackle big problems like this, that started with silos in the data protection space, but really had a much, much bigger aperture against that. And I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that data has gravity, and so whether that data is being stored, for data protection purposes or for analytics purposes or so on and so forth, you end up with these silos built around different tool sets and different tool chains, and all of those things requiring different management models around that. So this notion of having a platform, being able to consolidate those things into, a consistent experience and ultimately put a life cycle around them, I think is what, will really solve the mass data fragmentation problem at scale. I think, the only way to really do it is to really be able to capture all of the data, regardless of whether it's on-prem, it's in the cloud, it's hybrid. It doesn't matter. So I think the platform approach is one of the key parts of our philosophy and how we think about it. The other is that because data has gravity, it's really hard to move the data around. And so the idea of bringing your applications closer to the data is really powerful. And so, thinking about how do you add value to the data that you've already captured, how do you extract value out of that? Means that you need to build an ecosystem. You need a community of applications built around APIs and so on and so forth that are helping you to really manage that data.
Yeah, all of that makes very good sense to me. I like that philosophy as well. And just kind of back on the AWS tip here is that they're continuing to grow. Still, number one public cloud provider, and I think Microsoft Azure is slowly trying to gain steam around Azure. What are some of the challenges though that you're solving, I guess, with your data management as a service offering? And I do know that several vendors are already, in that data protection, software as a service space. What makes yours different and unique about, I guess, what Cohesity is doing also as well?
Yeah. So I think the challenges, are pretty clear and apparent to most people these days, especially the past 9 months or so during pandemic, right? You've seen the pressure on the cost side of things in every industry, right? And of course, there are, great examples of companies that have just done the complete opposite, have been rocket ships during this time. And we all know those ones. But uh, for the most part, most people are feeling the constraint of their budgets being cut, and they have to be more considerate of costs. So being able to achieve predictability in your spend is certainly top of mind. We ran a survey recently, not just of our customers, but broadly in the market, and 89% of the respondents in that survey said that their organization was looking to consider as a service solutions and at least in most part due to budget cuts that they're all facing. So first challenge is on the cost side of things, and it's not just about lowering costs, right? It's really about that notion of elasticity and predictability. And the second is what I would broadly just categorize as self-service, which is with everyone working from home, and even with vaccines on the horizon and so forth. There's still going to be, I think, a long period of time where people continue to work from home, and some that just choose to continue to work from home, and companies that are going to really get the benefits of a distributed workforce. And that means, the times of coordinating at a whiteboard, being able to, brainstorm over the water cooler, like those things are going to be a lot harder to do. You're not going to go through a ticketing system to get things done. You want to be able to go and get it done yourself as an end user. We're all used to that, right? In our personal lives as individuals, when we deal with technology, and in the work environment, it needs to be that way as well. So self-service is the second one I'd call out in terms of challenges that people are facing out there. And the third is agility. And again, like never more apparent than the time that we're in now. When you look at new applications, how quickly they're getting spun up, being able to leverage all that data that's out there and do it very, very quickly, that is your key differentiator as any company, these days. Some people say every company is becoming a software company or technology company. It's really technology that's enabling all of those companies in their transformation, and that means that their culture needs to change. You and I know this well from the DevOps space as well, right? It's a big cultural transition, but being able to move fast, right? Meet your customers' needs, spin up new features, new capabilities. It's hard to do that when you live in a world that isn't cloud centric, right? That doesn't have solutions that can be delivered as a solution or as a
Yeah,
service as well.
yeah, those are all great things, and we're definitely moving in a direction around self service, and you were at Puppet, so IT automation, of course, it's hot, it's key. It's something that more and more organizations are starting to kind of wrap themselves around, more from a cost savings perspective, and as you mentioned as well too, it's just agility, right? I also noticed a strategic partnership announced, I guess, you guys with Pure Storage. Is that correct?
Yeah, several months ago, we did announce a partnership with Pure. This is, a partnership that came out of customer demand, the best kind, right?
Really?
So it's really customers that are building on all flash
Hmm.
and want to have a modern solution that's built around that. So we've worked really closely with Pure to build this joint solution. This isn't just about reselling or any sort of model like that. This is truly, we built a product together.
Okay.
And so we've integrated the products together around that to really deliver value quickly to customers. So they're not having, in that whole model of silos, having to stand up independent solutions. They can, procure a joint solution here, stand it up really quickly. It's fully integrated from a management standpoint. The cost and TCO are really attractive, and so it was a very logical partnership for us. And it's just been I think a couple short months here since we announced, and we're already seeing customers deploying and adopting, which is really cool.
So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around both of the solutions together. So I guess this is if you currently have a customer today that also has, I guess, a few Pure Storage arrays, and they have your product as well, that they can actually kind of leverage what's already there and maybe leverage it through like a new management plane or a new UI. How does that look? I'm still trying to
Yeah,
like picture that in
yeah.
my
I think
mind.
the easiest way I think to think about it is if you're going to deploy an all flash storage solution and you're picking Pure to do that, then having a data protection solution that's integrated in out of the box with that gives you that sort of best of breed capability. That's where the solution comes to bear. So obviously, we have existing customers today from Cohesity who have Pure Storage. There are Pure customers who have Cohesity. This is really about delivering a joint solution to new customers or customers that are expanding. Um, and so that's really the solution. It is fully integrated, and it's an OEM relationship.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense to me now. Okay, yeah. So sounds like a great partnership, and sounds like you guys will definitely be kind of working together moving forward and developing maybe some more products around or services around, I guess, the integration there.
Yeah, I think it fits, like this whole notion of data management means that you have to be agnostic, right? In some ways, you have to be able to support any data source, databases, SaaS applications, traditional apps, so forth, and every data source that's out there and destination. And that means, partnering with a lot of folks out there. And so we try to be partnering with the best that are out there, but
Hmm.
we also partner with many. So, Pure is a great new partner. We also partner with Cisco and HPE. Amazon, obviously, like we talked earlier. So, we'll continue to work closely with other of the heavyweights out there in the industry.
All right. So I guess with that said, what do you think will be the primary challenge, I guess, customers will need to address in 2021? Maybe a little beyond the pandemic. I think the pandemic will still be an issue, and we have a possible vaccine on the horizon. From a data protection, backup recovery, disaster recovery perspective, what do you see? Are you seeing something different from, I guess, from what I'm seeing? Because I'm pretty much seeing artificial intelligence and machine learning really becoming more of a thread within backup and recovery, and maybe continuing to use software as a service and kind of building services on top of existing platforms in order to be more intelligent. Are you seeing something similar, or what are you seeing? What's your crystal ball there?
Yeah, I've been in this space for quite a number of years in storage and data protection and infrastructure and so forth. And I think for some people, when I talk to them about, what are you excited about? It's like, what can you be excited about? Like, how much are things really going to change? But the thing that keeps me really going here is there's just so much opportunity, I think, to continue to not just evolve, but like revolutionize the way that we think about data management. So, my big focus, going into 2021. And I think the big opportunity out there to help our customers around this are two things. One is what I would broadly call like consumerization of enterprise data management. We have, for so many years and decades now, sort of tolerated enterprise products that are out there that are hard to use. You need a PhD to figure them out, right? And we're so used to at this point, all of us, it doesn't matter what generation you're from at this point, used to interacting with technology in a much more human way. Like you mentioned AI and so forth, but that's just a piece of it, right? When you think about how much easier it is to spin up a podcast like this. As anyone, you can just get to the technology. It's mostly freely available. It's really easy to learn. You don't need to read a manual and so forth. That same philosophy needs to be brought more deeply into the data management space, and I think that that's super exciting to me because I think the notion of design and design centric thinking it's fun. It brings you closer to your customers and your end user, and that I think we're well on our way on that, but there's still so much more that can be done. So that's one. The other that I think is really interesting is that for the longest time, data management has been centered around structured and unstructured data. And so it's always been, how do I capture the data from a database or from a file system or so forth, and start to put, attributes around that: protection, security, governance, policy, those types of things. But there's all this other data that exists out there in the ethos, right? You've got all this machine data and event streams and real time data and all these other things. And you mentioned AI. Like I think about the possibility when you start to combine these two data streams together and you look at the metadata that's coming out of them and what you can start to do around more advanced security and threat analysis and governance and things like that. Like there's a lot of cool stuff coming on the horizon that I think is going to take this from being in the sort of dark corners of the infrastructure into really being sort of front and center. So those are the two big things I think in 2021 that I'm most excited about.
And if you think we're even close to being finished dropping data protection knowledge, Gumbo listeners, we have some more ingredients to share with you when we get back from thanking our sponsors. Haiku is a global leader in multi-cloud backup as a service. With more than 2,000 customers in 70 countries, Haiku's award-winning solutions ease and simplify backup and recovery, data migration and management, and disaster recovery for the leading on-premises and public cloud environments. The company's solutions are used by enterprises around the world to protect and recover mission-critical workloads. Haiku was founded with the belief that data protection should be like a native service of the cloud platform, as easy to use as iPhone backup, focused on business applications and deliver an elastic service that scales with the customer. The company's award-winning backup as a service solutions protect customers' data equally well wherever it resides, while offering a level of simplicity that allows anyone to turn on enterprise-ready data protection without extensive training or professional services. Visit haiku.com to learn more, or try haiku.com to get started today. And to Matt, we're back in. And before the break, you were discussing your thoughts on the primary challenges that customers will need to address in 2021, since we still have the pandemic going strong and a couple vaccines on the horizon. And for the rest of this episode, let's get into the codification of workloads, applications, and automating backups. I can't have an episode where we don't talk about security at least a little bit, and ransomware always seems to come up and is a topic. Do you have any ransomware like recovery stories, or something interesting that you can share just around ransomware and how Cohesity does it, and something that maybe Cohesity has done with their platform around recovering from ransomware? Any stories for us?
Yeah, obviously ransomware is a really critical use case. And certainly, this year has been one of the hottest use cases that we've
Mm-hmm.
certainly been working with our customers on. And so, everyone has their story around it. And ultimately, the best stories are the stories you don't hear about, which is you don't actually
Yeah.
get subject to a breach or to an attack in that way. So, I think the things that are interesting insights there are, when we think about, how we're helping our customers in identifying potential attacks and then ultimately averting them. We're processing a huge number of alerts, hundreds of thousands of daily events get processed by our system. That turn into, obviously, using AI and machine learning. We're not going to alert users on every one of those. When we start to look at patterns and so forth that come out of that, that comes down to across our customer base, thousands, small number of thousands. And every one of those, well, it's inevitable that you will have some false positives. I think anything is subject to that, is ultimately helping customers, avert a potential shutdown. And we've seen in the news, healthcare facilities and providers have been large targets, and being able to help those folks prevent potential downtime and ultimately recover if they do, unfortunately, get subject to them. I think
Yeah.
that's really fulfilling, right? That's, I think, part of our
Mm-hmm.
mission is to help our customers keep access to their data and secure their data. So, that's not any one individual
Yeah.
story
Gotcha.
around that, because I think everyone, unfortunately, is subject to it these days. It's not no one's special, if you will, around ransomware in
Yeah.
that regard when it comes to verticals.
Yeah, I've heard that it's not a matter of if, it's when, right? Like
Yeah,
when
exactly,
you're gonna get it.
exactly,
Okay, so
exactly.
also just kind of tapping back into your previous experience over at Puppet, where I sit right now. Just wanted to know, I guess, how important you think the codification of workloads and applications and let's say backups, right? Because working for a backup company nowadays, it doesn't mean the same thing that it used to mean. It was really more hardware centric. Back in the day when I was a TSM administrator and I was changing tapes out and dealing with bad tapes and robots and things from that perspective. But I guess what is Cohesity doing on the front around? I guess automating workloads, and I know you have your REST API, there? Or what are you doing that's really interesting, I guess, from an automation
Yeah.
perspective?
So I think there's two ways of looking at automation in this context. And I think the traditional one has been very ops centric, right? Most of this infrastructure is how do you manage the infrastructure itself versus the outcome that you're trying to drive for. So, we've got a rich set of capabilities there, whether it's APIs or, management integrations into other portals and things like that. But I think the other side of automation that is really exciting and kind of comes back to what I was mentioning before, what I look forward to in 2021 is, the more developer centric side of the world, which is really where a lot of people are spending their times these days, right? When you think about all the tools and services that are now available, to DevOps teams or developers building out applications, it's as simple as subscribing to a service to get a lot of stuff done. And so, how do you take those use cases that are part of a data management portfolio or set of services and turn them into something that can be consumed by developers? And I think that's where we're going to see the next evolution here is, thinking about turning your data management capabilities into a set of APIs that you could consume through your pipeline, through your CI/CD pipeline, or as part of your application itself. You're spinning up new versions of your application. Do you want to take a snapshot right before you roll out that next version? Do you want to go through and do some masking of potentially sensitive data that's within that? Do you want to put some governance and policy updates in place as you roll out a new application build? Those types of things are not interacting with the infrastructure like it's infrastructure. It's interacting with the data and managing that data. So I think the automation, when it comes to in a developer centric world, integrating with the DevOps tools and so forth, are some of the things that we've put already some good investment in, and we're only going to do more. So we already have great integrations, but I think that's going to be the next frontier when it comes to automation and sort of codifying, like you said, the whole world of data management.
Okay, great. That sounds exciting, and it seems like I've asked you tons of futuristic type questions. Hey, what do you think's gonna happen in 2021 and 2025 and et cetera, right? So I'm gonna roll to the closing gumbo question, and it's not a technical question. So just want to let you know that it's not technical. It's something that may throw you for a loop here, but I'll give you a moment to think about it. And it's a cool question though, and maybe you've heard it by listening to a previous episode. So the question is, if you had an opportunity to travel back in time to have a conversation with your 16-year-old self, what would you tell your 16-year-old self that could possibly change your future destiny?
Gosh, Demetrius, you're getting all sorts of thoughts going in my head here. I'm trying to balance the things that I was thinking about when I was 16 versus what I'm thinking about now. But I think that the thing, and maybe this is just very situational. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this, given what 2020 has been as a year, is balance. That's the thing that I go back and I think about how much time we all spend in our work lives committed to something, maybe at the detriment of spending time with family or with friends or, reading a book or going for a walk. And, we end up sometimes doing things to an extreme. And I think when I was 16, that's what I thought success would look like. You do something so well that you commit all your time to it. And I think if there's one thing I've learned this year to appreciate a lot more, it's being able to actually balance stuff out and find new and different ways to connect and be good to yourself and good to your community, and take the time to actually invest in learning and bettering yourself and so forth. So I don't think my 16-year-old self would have heard me if I shared that then, but I do feel like with years there's a little bit of wisdom that comes, and with a lot of time in our hands these past few months, certainly a lot of time for reflection and introspection. So that would be my answer, Demetrius.
Okay, yeah, I like it. It's a very introspective answer, and there's no wrong answer. I just appreciate you sharing your input, your insight, and also taking time out to come on Data Protection Gumbo. It's been a pleasure, having you on, and I look forward to seeing what Cohesity has next, since you are head of product there, and I'm sure you guys are working on some pretty cool things. So just thank you again for coming on the Gumbo.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you for listening to Data Protection Gumbo. Please follow us on Twitter at DPG Podcast and join our Backup and Recovery Professionals LinkedIn group. Just search Backup and Recovery Professionals on LinkedIn and you will find the group. And until next time, Gumbo listeners, have a fantastic week.